We'll start with the session now. Very interestingly, it's related to mining, if not directly, at least to the energy use of Bitcoin. So, yeah, so Bitcoin does not waste energy. How many times have you heard the safety instructions before a standard commercial flight? You probably know them by heart, but every time prior to takeoff, flight attendants instruct passengers traveling with children to put their oxygen mask on first and then tend to the children. Instinctively, it's counterintuitive. Logically, it makes all the sense in the world. Make sure you can breathe so that the child dependent on you can breathe too. The same principle applies to the coordination function of money in an economy and the resources required to protect that function. In a more philosophical safety warning, the flight attendant may say, please make sure the money supply is secure so that we can continue to coordinate the activity of millions of people to build these hyper complex planes that afford you the opportunity to even contemplate the problem I'm about to explain. So, yeah, I think this is quite rhetorical, and the point of this paragraph is to explain how the money itself, as an institution, as a technology, as something we use every day, is so deeply involved in every activity of our lives that it's you can't blame humans too much for taking it for granted because it's like an invisible thing that all of us use, and not enough people care to think about how it works. So this last statement is a pretty hilarious statement because it goes on to show that the money supply is the most important thing happening behind every complex activity in the economy. But yeah, most people have the safety instructions in their heads when it comes to taking flights. I know friends who are huge airplane nerds, not even aerodynamics nerds. They are airplane nerds. They know about specific flights, companies, and how their services are. And yeah, I doubt that they think about money at all. And yeah, which is the which is the world, the state of world right now. So yeah, continuing, we will come back to this, but you will never hope to understand the justification for the amount of energy Bitcoin consumes without first developing an appreciation for the fundamental role money plays in coordinating economic activity. What is money? How does it work? How should it work? What is its function in society? If you haven't stopped to ask these questions, you can't begin to grasp the weight of the problem Bitcoin intends to solve. And without appreciation for the problem, the cost to secure the solution will never seem justified. Any number of concerned onlookers raised the red flag about the amount of energy consumed by the Bitcoin network. This concern stems from the idea that energy consumed by the Bitcoin network could otherwise be utilized for more productive functions, or that it is just plain bad for the environment. Both ignore the fundamental magnitude of how critical Bitcoin's energy consumption actually is. In the long game, there may be no greater, more important use of energy than that which is deployed to secure the integrity of a monetary network and constructively, in this case, the Bitcoin network. But that doesn't stop those who do not understand the problem statement from raising concerns. So, yep, I think this is at the heart of the entire propaganda against Bitcoin because the Bitcoin network
Yeah,
itself.
I have a question. Like, who benefits from this propaganda, right? Like, why are people
Yes.
concerned about Bitcoin wasting a lot of energy, as if people don't run AC or people don't,
Right.
you know, uh, yeah. So, like, I want to really, I don't think there's any reason for anyone to be concerned unless they have a
Right.
downside.
Right.
Bitcoin using energy.
Right. You literally took words out of my mouth. I was literally coming to that. That most people, it's the more biggest tragedy in Bitcoin because most people do not actually care about the environment. You know, your friend does not give a shit. He's living his life. He does not give a shit whether he's driving a coal-driven car. People can talk about ESG on a very abstract level, but at the end of the day, their lifestyle choices do not, most for the most part, do not reflect any care for the environment. So I don't think it's the average person who is creating any uncertainty or any FUD around Bitcoin, or they care. They give one. I mean, they don't care enough in their 24 hours to think about how Bitcoin is damaging the environment. There are only two, in my opinion, in my understanding, there are only two stakeholders which benefit from that. One is shitcoiners because they want to propel how proof of stake is better, how more efficient ways of using the blockchain is better. So one is that, and they have a clear incentive, right? They want to sell their token, they want to create money out of thin air. And the second is the energy companies which are invested in certain areas. So I will be humble enough to not say much more than that because I do not understand how coal or fossil fuels work and if they are impacting the environment at all. I know Saifuddin is completely against that and he calls it a scam. I don't know if renewable energy is more economical, viable, or better, or the future for humanity. I don't know enough about nuclear. I just know that these debates are inflamed and up in the air right now. It's at the heart of how society and how we coordinate activity. It's a, yeah. But yeah, the it's the energy companies, right? It's the government and the energy companies which
Yeah,
take
it's
to
the
lead.
company doing it, wherein they have an alternate proof of work which is less energy intensive
Yeah,
and is superior, which is actually very difficult and decentralized and all that. Then it makes some sense to talk about it. Like Chia is another currency, right? I think, and they claim to use something else for their
yeah,
proof of work. Yeah, then those critiques might make some sense, but in general, I think it's a good idea that you have an energy source which is uh, as in not being utilized. Now you are basically allowing anyone with any kind of energy, uh,
right.
and you are allowing them to price it, right? So
Right. I did not
because
follow
like,
that. What do you mean by that in the last sentence?
yeah, so my point was like if you have got any kind of energy source which is not being utilized, it's not connected to the grid, you
Mm-hmm.
can use that now.
Hmm.
Earlier
Right.
there was nobody could use it, and so
Right.
that brings a pricing all kinds of energies,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Earlier some kinds of energies had no price, like they were literally they were being wasted because uh
Yes.
yeah. So I think that's
Totally.
right.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Setu, because you were literally saying exactly what I want to say. But yeah, go on.
No, so I have made my point. That's the point
Okay.
that I was
Okay.
making.
So yes, so I completely agree that the enemies of Bitcoin's energy use are only twofold. One is the shitcoiners who want to print money out of thin air, and the most efficient way of using money or the better than proof of work technology is an Excel sheet or a SQL database, right? You can just literally run the entire ledger of the world on a spreadsheet. But that's not the point, right? The problem with money is not that you need efficient use of energy to run a ledger. It's that it should not be in control of any human institution. I mean, just my personal opinion. If I'm not articulating the entire point of Bitcoin's invention, and the second stakeholder, which is against the use of Bitcoin's mining energy, is energy into Bitcoin mining, is the enemies of free market because they're already invested in certain stakes in some industries, and they stand to lose a lot from the entire bounty for free market to price energy and use it. So yeah, those are the only two people I think who try to make the argument that there is climate change and Bitcoin mining is damaging it. These are a couple of mainstream media houses who have made this comments about Bitcoin mining. In the context of climate change, raging wildfires, and record-breaking hurricanes, it's worth asking ourselves hard questions about Bitcoin's environmental impact. The fundamental wasteful nature of Bitcoin mining means there's no easy technological solution coming. So Vice Media is actually some sort of alternative media, but it's still not. It's funded. I doubt it's an independent media house. So yeah, so I'm not sure if their critique or their research on Bitcoin is neutral and independent. Yeah. Hi Keshav, thanks for joining us. I'm glad you joined us for the Bitcoin mining related session.
Hey everyone, good to be here. Sorry, missed a couple of sessions.
No worries. Yeah, so I'll read from here. Bitcoin energy consumption. For background, Bitcoin is secured by a decentralized network of nodes, computers running the Bitcoin protocol. Economic nodes within the network generate, validate, and relay transactions, as well as validate and relay Bitcoin blocks. Time sequence group of transactions. Mining nodes perform similar functions, but also perform Bitcoin's proof of work function to generate, solve, and transmit blocks to the rest of the network. By performing this work, miners validate history and provide a clearing function for current transactions, which all other nodes then check for validity. Think the clearing function of the new op fed, but on a completely decentralized basis every 10 minutes on average. Yep. So the famous quote by Gigi, I might be not exactly articulating it, is that Bitcoin does away with time in seconds and gives power to blocks or So yeah, this is the quote and my interpretation of it. And when the quote says it gives power to blocks, it gives power to computing or power. It's like you can't fake it, right? It's like it's physics. You can't fake work because there's actually movement. There's an actual movement of electrons happening when there's electricity being used to verify that the block had to be mined using that electricity. So yeah, that happens through use of SHA-256. Yeah, anyone's curious or new to Bitcoin. Yeah, the work performed requires massive amounts of processing power contributed by miners all over the world, running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This processing power requires energy. For context, at 75 exahashes per second, the Bitcoin network currently consumes approximately 7 to 8 gigawatts of power, which translates to 9 million per day, 3.3 billion per year of energy at marginal cost of 5 cents per kilowatt hour, rough estimates. Based on national averages in the US, the Bitcoin network consumes as much power as approximately 6 million homes. Yeah, it is definitely a lot of power, but it is also what secures and backs the Bitcoin network. Yep. I think this is written in 2019, and the current, I'm not even going to try to make a guess, but I think it's at least 10-fold or 15-fold the number of exahashes per second and the total hash rate of the current network. I think it's definitely gone up, especially after COVID, by magnitude fold. I will try to see a recent chart. So this is the Bitcoin hash rate from 2017 to 2019, October 2017. So it was 10 less than 10 exahashes at the beginning of October 2017. Yeah, this has been the curve. So it has gone down in stages, but yeah, the overall trend is pretty clear, and it is literally like I won't say exponential, but skyrocketed in terms of increase in hash rate after 2019.
Yeah, just another point that I would like to add, Shreyan, the last sentence where it says, right, Bitcoin consumes energy equivalent to 6 million homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, a while back, Cambridge released a research paper where they had done this in 2018 or 19 as well, but ever since renewable energy sources got included for running Bitcoin operations, they revised their research paper and released a version 2. And in there, the conclusion was, if we take into consideration all the renewable energy sources as well as the non-renewable energy sources, and we offset it, the net electricity consumption is equivalent to all the washing machines that are being run in the US. That is, which is much smaller than as compared to 6 million homes altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
What was your last statement? That it is much smaller than the 6 million homes of
Yeah,
US.
energy consumption done by 6 million homes. I'm assuming that it's far greater than the energy consumption by washing machines across the US.
Right. Right. But is that a rhetoric to highlight that Bitcoin is actually not using that much energy? Is that the comparison?
Not sure, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that there's a statement that was at the end of the
Okay. Okay.
research paper, and I quote that overall the Bitcoin network consumes all the energy equivalent to all the tumble dryers in the United States of America. Tumble dryers are like washing
Okay.
machines. Okay.
Right. Because I think it's so yeah, energy is a completely different rabbit hole. I don't think I've gone down it, but I think it's like the metric should never be that how much energy we are using, right? It should be that
For what
whether
purpose it's being used,
yeah,
right?
what purpose is being used for ultimately, and whether it's, I mean, sustainable or not. I know sustainable can also become a very trigger word in Bitcoin that the entire climate change thing is scam. So there's no such thing as bad energy or poor or bad form of energy. So yeah, I'm not. I'm just going to be humble and not comment on it. Yeah,
Hmm.
thank you for sharing the current hash rate. I was just going through this, just one Google search, and already in 2023 July there was 30K exahashes. Approximately, this, the blue line is the hash rate, and in less than 1 year, yeah, in less than 1 year, it's become, yeah, the peak was 70K. Uh, Sorry, what is the hash rate metric here? It was, yeah, it was tera hashes. Yeah, so I don't know if tera hashes is bigger than exahashes. If there's any units nerd here, then let me know. But yeah, I'll try to open the chart that IMDAB has also shared. But yeah, so towards the end of the session, I have some ideas which I shared with Mango and Jatin and Karthik. So yeah, I think this is a good setup for what I had in mind. But yeah, so this is how Bitcoin hash rate, and this is the actual price of Bitcoin. So I don't know if you have read that this narrative or already agree or disagree that the best way to understand Bitcoin adoption is through hash rate, not even Bitcoin addresses or Bitcoin movement or activity. It's like the biggest activity of Bitcoin is just hodling Bitcoin. So how can you measure it, right? You can just measure that how many UTXs have not moved. So that's one way to measure Bitcoin. And the other way to measure Bitcoin adoption is through hash rates, like more people wanting to burn money, resources, energy into securing the network. That's the real, in my view, the real way to measure Bitcoin adoption. And it's going skyrocketing. It's like the price does not match how Bitcoin is being adopted by Bitcoin miners. How could this much energy be justified? And what will Bitcoin consume when a billion people are using it? The dollar works just fine, right? Well, that's just the thing. It doesn't. The resources are being devoted to fix a problem most understand exists, which makes justifying a derivative cost challenging. To help ease the pain of environmentalists and social justice warriors, we often point out a number of countervailing narratives to make it seem more palatable. Yep. A significant portion of Bitcoin's energy consumption is generated from renewable energy, renewable resources. Bitcoin will spur innovation in the development of renewable energy technology and resources. Bitcoin consumes energy that is otherwise wasted if not flared into the sphere. Bitcoin consumes only the energy that the free market will bear at a free market rate. Bitcoin consumes energy resources that would otherwise not be economic to develop. The nature of Bitcoin energy demand will improve the efficiency of energy grids. So I think all of these statements are rabbit holes in themselves, and there's a lot to discuss and research into them. But these are what are a lot of the times used as the more politically correct ways of talking about Bitcoin energy. And even a lot of Bitcoiners I know believe that climate change is a real threat and we need to transition to a renewable energy. These are the Ben Arcs, which also believes in socialism, but he's a fantastic and popular Bitcoin developer. So yeah, I'm not sure if his opinion is correct. These considerations help enumerate why a simple view that Bitcoin's energy consumption is necessarily wasteful or necessarily bad for the environment fails the proverbial test. However, without an appreciation for the enormity of the monetary problem Bitcoin intends to solve, the marginal cost could never be justified. Bitcoin represents a solution to the systemic issues that exist within our legacy monetary framework and relies on energy consumption to function. Economic stability depends on the function of money, and Bitcoin provides a more sound monetary framework, which is why there is no more important long term use of energy than securing the Bitcoin network. So rather than expand on the many individual counterpoints to the mainstream narrative, there is no better place to focus than the first principles problem itself, the money problem or the global QE. Yep, this perfectly summarizes. Like no other argument, you don't need any other argument for Bitcoin energy use than just the simple focus on the first principle problem itself, like how this article quotes the money problem or the global QE quantitative easing problem. So we already, I think this is the link to the first article of the series itself. But yeah, I think it's a popular book. And oh no, this is a different article, Ender's Game. Yeah, we'll see if we're able to cover this, if somebody wants to cover this. The function of money.
Which book is a popular book? You were saying, Sharon?
Gradually, then certainly.
Okay.
Yeah,
We are
it's
already
an art.
covering it.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I was saying that, yeah, most people I believe have already covered or read about it here. Hi, Mushroom Cup, and hi, X Guy. This is the second time I'm seeing X Guy join a session. So good to have you. So yeah, I'll continue. But at any time, if somebody is new, feel free to pause me and express any comments or ask questions. Yeah, just have fun. The function of money. The problem of money is enormous, though most people do not recognize it. Most can feel it in their daily lives, but cannot identify the root cause, working harder, longer hours, going into debt, and still barely getting by. There has to be a better way, but in order to identify a solution, one has to first see and understand the problem. The problem that exists is with our money, and the impact it has on society is pervasive. Without getting into the details of what money is, read the Bitcoin Standard on Nick Szabo's Shelling Out. The Nick Szabo's Shelling Out was the second one of the other article series that we had discussed to read in future sessions, maybe. We can more easily describe its function in society. Money is the good that facilitates economic coordination between parties that otherwise would not have a basis to cooperate. Put simply, it is the good that allows society to function and it allows us to accumulate the capital that makes our life better, which takes different forms for different people. There is a saying that money is the root of all evil, but as Hayek more appropriately describes it in The Road to Serfdom, money is an agent of freedom. Money is one of the greatest instruments of freedom ever invented by man. F.A. Hayek, The Road to Serfdom. This is also one of the most famous and recommended texts. I've yet to read it. But yeah. This is piece of text from the book. I'll just read the highlighted text. It is because money offers us the widest
Mango, you
choice.
have read to some.
Sorry, say that again.
Uh, Hey Shran, I was just curious if someone has read The Road to Serfdom, and if they have, then if they can summarize it. And
Right.
it was directed to Mango more. Mango, have you read this book?
Yeah, it's by Hayek. Yeah.
And what is this about? Like, is there? Can you give us like a
Man,
5-line summary if you have?
uh,
Right.
no, I read it. I read this really long ago. It's it's Austrian. I mean, it's Austrian, of course, but I cannot summarize, man. I don't. I read this really long ago.
Okay. Okay.
So
Anyone
I know.
else who
Yeah.
might have read it?
Sachin has read it, so I
I
think.
have the physical book with me if you want.
Okay. No, no. Because we are talking about it, I've heard so highly of this book, The Road to Serfdom by Hayek.
Right.
So I thought might as well inquire if someone has read it.
Right. Same. Sachin has read it, and Sachin is also pushing people to read it. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Is
I
Sachin here in the call?
I bought that book.
Right.
I, I bought that book in order to convince my politician relative to get out of politics. He never, he never ended up reading it.
I will say this that Mango, in all your stories and experiences of failing to orange pill, I still fucking love it because even when I do it and I still fail, I still. It's like I'm not saying that that's the way to adopt, help Bitcoin adoption or educate people, but a lot of the times I do see people get triggered whenever I mention the problem with the government or anything which is outside of their reality. So yeah, it's difficult to find a way to communicate Bitcoin, and I'm trying to do that more and more.
Tell them what number go up, man. They'll understand.
Yeah, I mean, this specific thing. It was not about orange pilling. It was just understanding the reality of government and how naive it is to hope that government can be just.
Hmm. Truly, yeah. So even with the question of CBDC, like I was explaining it to a friend, so I'm not sure, Setu, are we allowed to discuss these topics? We can discuss the article right now.
We can, because I don't think, in my opinion, we can discuss. If others have reservation, they can.
Yeah, I was anyway going to give a very neutral opinion. So somebody was having a conversation about CBDC, and I literally said that we are living in the Superman world. That the villain is not even now trying to hide. It's like they are saying that you get the digital of the digital because you like Bitcoin, and we get the center of the center. So it's like we want to have the power, and you get the digital. So be happy. So it's like a villain literally just saying that we are going to rule the world, and this is how it's going to be. So yeah, it's like now up to us to be the Superman of our lives.
Sure. I have a question for all. I've seen this multiple places. The digital e-rupee, is that India's version of CBDC?
I think it is. I'm not sure. I know
Yeah.
Axis Bank and few other banks are already providing
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
PDP.
I
Yes.
saw it in HDFC's portal. Like you can pay with digital e-rupee. So I thought, okay,
I
this is
think
the.
yeah, I think that is the CBDC. Yes.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
the CBDC, and the way it works, as per my understanding, I had spoken to a bank manager a few months back. So what he told me was, it's basically like cash, that account is held by your commercial bank. So let's say if it is at HDFC, so HDFC will be holding that e-rupee in your HDFC account,
Hmm.
but it's like cash in the way that that money is not it cannot be lent out by HDFC. So that e-rupee will not bear any interest because it will not be lent out. It will not be fractionally reserved. It will be held in your account as is.
So I'm assuming there's not a supply cap for this, right? Anyone can have any amount of digital e-rupee, right?
Yeah, there is no supply cap, of course. Yeah, because
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's like legal verification equivalent of I mean cash or verifiability in terms of cryptography that you cannot verify the ledger itself, but you have the legal protection that this money will not be lent out because it's your money, it's your cash.
hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's digital cash basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it cannot be lent out is what they claim. So we never know.
Yeah, it's a legal protection, like I said, right? So it's like they won't kill you until they want to.
I think the other point is, unlike internet money, which is tracked, they are like some of the governments are trying to make CBDC like real cash, which is not tracked.
Hmm.
So that's another small difference. Not all the governments, but some governments.
Right. They're wanting to make a money that they can track. Is that what you said?
No, they are wanting to make it a kind of money which they are not tracking or they can't track
Okay.
like cash.
Okay, seriously. So how do they ensure it?
So how to ensure what?
That they can't track it. How do I
Ah,
know?
that's the tricky part, right? So how do they not only ensure it, but how do they make everyone believe that this is like cash? Because
Right.
at the end of the day, to them, it's a digital version of cash. So any property which is not similar to cash makes
Right.
it away from how digital cash is supposed to be.
Right. Right. Yeah, they do say it's anonymous. Yeah, that's one of the properties that they claim this will have. So it's like they are making a Monero. So it's like that's the cryptographic security of Monero that I understand. That it's you cannot audit the supply, but nobody has the visibility over nobody can link your outputs. So that I've not read or understood Monero
I think
enough.
it's a little like Chom's cash, not like Monero.
Okay. Okay. Oh,
It's
interesting.
still like
Right.
Chom's cash.
That's actually
That's the
good.
attempt, but not all of them will make it. And even if they claim that they are doing it, they will probably still track. It's another lie.
But that's actually a good step, right? Because if they can, so there's already technology of Chaumian e-cash, sorry, Chaumian mints that they can use to create private tokens or e-rupee or CBDC, right? So if they can actually do this, now there's technological, I mean, possibility of making that happen.
Yeah, have you read or listened to podcasts related to Chaumian, the history of Chaumian eCash?
I've read the original article by the creator and a few podcasts on Fediment.
Yeah. So the guy there was a lot of interest from banking and so many players who wanted the patent on Chaumian eCash,
Okay.
and he almost that also went through it. He almost went through selling that also.
Okay.
But in the end, I'm not able to recollect.
Right.
Let me find the source and I'll send it to you.
Nice, nice. Yeah, do please do because yeah, this is actually interesting. I've had conversations with Bitcoiners before as well. That Bitcoin is not just an invention on the QE or money supply level, which is the ultimate value thesis, of course, that Bitcoin is fixed in supply. But it's also an invention in privacy and identification, right? Because the banks could have already have Chaumian banks. It's like banks could have implemented it because that technology is already there. It was, I
You
think, in
know,
1970s. Hmm.
to that point, I had a point to make. This is not directly related to Xiaomi and eCash, but like when such a technology exists like Xiaomi and eCash, how can governments plunder on electoral bond? Like when there are technologies
Right.
exist to make your money like non-traceable.
Right. Right.
it's really a surprise that you
True.
still like uh, uh,
True.
use
True.
that
True.
word, still look it up.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's thing.
and
Yeah.
and the
Right.
best that you can come up with is hiding it using alphanumeric string that is only visible in ultraviolet light, right? So that's what they came up with.
Right. Yeah, there's actually cryptographic guarantee that you can not have electoral bonds being embezzled or increase in supply, right? With using Chowmin eCash. That's the promise at least. Yeah. Okay, I'll continue the article now. More specifically, money is the good that allows for specialization and the division of labor. It allows individuals to pursue their own interests, and it is how individuals communicate their preference to the world, whether it in work or in leisure, and it is what creates the range of choice we all take for granted. Our modern economy is built on the foundation of freedom that money provides, but the end result is a highly complex and specialized system. Yep. Yeah, this highlights the beauty of this article, I think, also because I was talking to a Bitcoiner friend. He's like through and through understands Bitcoin fundamentals, but he was very clear that it's a fiat problem that most people do not know how to cook their own food or do a certain thing. And I pushed him back because I think that's a specialization thing. It's not a fiat or Bitcoin thing. It's like people are choosing that, and I know that most people are forced to make that choice now because of the fiat currency system. But I think even on the Bitcoin standard, you might see people who do not know how to cook food and still have a beautiful life and not have any problems. So yeah, this is me because I think specialization itself is an entirely different subject. It's nothing to do with the problems with fiat currency because most people are when you have a sound money system, a lot of people can still choose to specialize in one subject and not have any skills at all outside of that. That might still be fine. To simplify the concept, Milton Friedman explains the complexity of a pencil. See here, detailing how no one individual is capable of producing a standard lead pencil. He details the wood required, the saw to cut the wood, the steel to make the saw, the iron ore to make the steel, the lead, the rubber for the eraser, the brass ring, the yellow paint, the glue, etc. He explains how making a single pencil requires the coordination cooperation of thousands of people, including people who don't speak the same language, who likely practice different religions, and who may even hate each other if they were ever to meet in person. And he explains that the ability to cooperate is a function of the price system and the economic good we call money. Yeah, so yeah, it's as profound as how Hayek puts it, that it's literally an agent of freedom. And yeah, it helps solve the problem of hate as well, because two people who have an incentive to cooperate economically, uh, they are forced to love each other, at least work with each other, because that's the problem that money solves. Abstracting from the pencil, now consider the complexity of our modern economy, from cars to airplanes to the internet to mobile phones, even to your local grocery store. Modern supply chains are so complex and so specialized that they require the coordination of millions of people to deliver any of these basic functions. The orchestration of all this activity, which fuels global trade, is only made possible by the function of money. A living example, Venezuela. So yeah, if you ever hear about hyperinflation, you are bound to hear about Venezuela. Venezuela provides a tangible macro and micro example of the vital role money plays in economic coordination and the dysfunction that follows when a monetary good fails. Venezuela is one of the most oil-rich countries in the world, but as an endgame function of monetary debasement, Venezuela's currency has recently hyperinflated. As its currency has deteriorated, basic economic functions have broken down to the point where getting food at grocery stores or basic healthcare is no longer the baseline. It is a full on humanitarian crisis, and at the root level, it is a function of Venezuela no longer having a stable currency. To coordinate economic activity and to facilitate the production of the goods it needs to trade within the global economy. I'll read this again. It is a full-on humanitarian crisis at the root, and at the root level, it is a function of Venezuela no longer having a stable currency to coordinate economic activity and to facilitate the production of the goods it needs to trade within the global economy. So it's not just the problem of capital controls that comes with a totalitarian government, that you're not able to source in the goods and services you need for your economy. It's also the problem that you are not able to produce the goods that you could have otherwise produced, because you need to trade that with money, and if you want to participate with the global economy as well. So it's a complete crisis, as this passage puts it. When money breaks down, everything can crash down. How does
To
this
that,
say?
I was reading this article on like how come these Gen Zs don't have the motivation to do any work, and like a lot of blame goes to social media and the fact that there's easy access and dopamine and all that. But I think some of it is also the fact that money is becoming worthless in a hyperinflationary world, which we will get into eventually if our currency will not be Bitcoin backed. All the work that you do is going to be meaningless. Like unless it's something that you really want to do, why will you do it? Because the if you get it in cash, yeah, it's not
Hmm.
gonna make sense unless you start getting paid in Bitcoin or Bitcoin backed currencies.
True, true.
Yeah, I
And
agree with that sort. Like, I always think this with myself, right? Like, let's say in a hypothetical world, graduate from a top B school, IIM ABC in India, and I get a 50, 60 lakh package, assuming I still won't be able to afford a 1 BHK or a decent 2 BHK in any of the major metropolitan cities, because no matter how hard you work, no amount of money is ever going to be enough because it just keeps, devaluing.
hmm.
Simpler conversation that I've had with my maid. She comes and cooks, and she was like, yesterday she was like, who won? And I was like, Modi lost, and she was like, I'm very happy. I didn't go to vote because I didn't want to vote for Modi. There's so much, the inflation is so high. And I was telling her to buy real estate and gold because those are the only option that she has. This inflation is just gonna go high, and she was complaining as to why no one gives her more than 2,000 rupees for the cooking that she does. But like the inflation is increasing all the time. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so yeah, that's an incident that I just wanted to share.
Right. Yeah, that completely resonates with how, I mean, this is how things will get triggered eventually, right? Because more and more people realize that the money that they're making is not helping them make ends meet after all. And yes, there are conspiracy theories that hyperinflation should have already occurred. And I mean, I don't want to get into that territory of how the financial crisis has not occurred already. But yeah, so there's good reasons to be made that a lot of people are not already feeling the pain, and they're realizing slowly by first principle of pain, not of reading economics or having any theories about how money should be, right? Because when it comes down to it, you realize that money is broken only when you feel the pain of not having a good store of value.
So, Shreyans, you
Yeah,
just mentioned that hyperinflation might have already occurred, right? So I saw this video of Michael Saylor, and he mentioned that we take the to calculate the inflation, we take a basket of goods, right?
Mhm.
CPI, I think, and then we check the increase in price of those goods. So a couple of years back, coffee was excluded from that basket of goods because the rate at which the coffee price rose was exponentially very high. And if they included it in the CPI index, the actual numbers would have come very higher than expected.
Right.
So the US government just excluded coffee out of the market of goods, a basket of goods, while calculating the inflation rate across the US. And I think I cut somebody off. Sorry about that. Who was it? Anyway, okay.
Great point, Keshav. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I wanted to chime in with the fact that that's a US centric view that you remove certain products from the goods basket and you claim that your inflation is under control, and it happens in all the countries. But US
Hmm.
is still key. US is one of those countries which can print dollars for free, but all the other countries in the world who are not producing petrol or dollars, right, which is US and petrol producing countries, they are going to be in like really, really bad situation because their money is going to effectively keep on becoming worthless the more dollars get printed. And you can already see it happening in a lot of countries in the world, and that this will only escalate like faster because effectively
Yeah.
we are all just working for dollars, right? So there's this book that Alex Gladstein has written. It's Alex Gladstein is one of the chief strategy officer at HRF, and they also support Betshala. So this book that he has written, it's called Hidden Depression, and it's about how IMF, International Monetary Fund, is basically a front for dollars.
Yeah, I've heard that podcast where they let's say they gave a country $2 billion, but over the course of 4 years, $2.4 billion came out of that country, right? How they
And
actually squeeze those countries.
squeezing those countries, and you have got free hand at printing dollars, right? So whatever someone is due, or whatever someone is, I mean, whatever reserve someone has, that dollars means nothing in the long run, because uh, yeah, no amount of dollar is enough protection, because you will just print it away and their dollars will be worth nothing tomorrow.
China has actually started to take action on this. I read this recently that they are selling their US treasuries very fast, and they are buying gold instead of that. Because I think they know this too, that if they hold their wealth in US treasuries, it's eventually going to get devalued because the US just keeps printing more of it.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of, like, recently gold also moved back to India, right? Some of the gold, I think 100-ton gold is
Yeah,
kind of brought in India after US and Russia. They both banned each other's asset in their countries. Banned as in usurped each other's asset in the countries. Yeah, if that sort of thing starts happening between all the countries, then you effectively do not trust on like other person's word, and yeah, whatever gold they have, it's all theirs. So
I mean,
yeah.
just imagine the amount of money and resources India would have spent to bring that 100 tons of gold back, right?
Did they do that though? I wasn't able to verify.
I mean, I just read the headlines that it got back.
But it's a
Probably they
good
have their
question,
own
right? How do
audit.
we even know? It's like at this point, how do we even know?
Yeah, I didn't. It didn't occur to me. Yeah, good job, Mango. Like Mango is like really into some deep rabbit zones.
Do not trust, verify.
Yeah,
Someone should tell the government about Bitcoin. They could have done this for a couple of dollars if they have actually done it.
they don't
That's
trust
my personal
Bitcoin
opinion.
right now. I think again, unless yeah, or probably they don't see how they don't want to see that risky transition.
Do you guys see Putin become a Bitcoiner? Putin, can we ever imagine he going completely against the US dollar and becoming a Bitcoiner?
I think he already is, right? Because when they invaded Ukraine, about $800 billion of worth of Russian assets, overseas assets, were frozen, right?
Right.
So, out of necessity, he has to become a Bitcoiner. He
Yeah.
has no other option.
Truly, truly. Yeah, I'm counting more on Putin than the democracies of the world. But I hope.
I think most of the big countries which have got some semblance of democracy, it's difficult for them to adopt Bitcoin, in my opinion. But like that's a debate that we had in the policy group today. I think monarchs like Qatar, or dictators or semi-dictators like Nayib Bukele have an easier time doing it. Like
Yeah,
I
because they
think
do not
Putin
have
also
any
has.
opposition party. Right? If
Yeah, in a
the
way,
will of the dictator
you are letting
is of
Putin
good
lightly control,
intention,
right? So
yeah.
So it's difficult. I don't foresee it happening very easily in India unless it's a very competitive politics and Bitcoiners come out as a block, as a voting block. And like one of them has to be Bitcoiners to sort of get the votes. That is a possibility given how politics is. But other than that, like logically arriving at Bitcoin, making Bitcoin like
Legal tender.
treasury
It's a
asset, I
very
don't
yeah.
see that. Legal tender is far difficult. Like I'm just talking about making it in your treasury. Like along with gold, you start keeping Bitcoin in your treasury. Like I'm talking about just that. That is also
Yeah,
like
like US has given an option that you can save you can allocate some percentage of your 401k account savings, right? That which is their retirement savings. Let's say India maybe can offer something like that in our EPF accounts or PPF accounts.
Wait, is it already there in the US? Can you allocate a portion of your? Are
option.
you?
Don't have that option. Like some of the you can put that money 401k money in your in ETFs like in any other stock. But in terms of treasury, I'm saying country's treasury. US dollar is not right now backed by Bitcoin. Uh, but some countries have dollars in their treasuries. For example, El Salvador, famously.
Right. It was
Oh, by the
actually
way, it has some Bitcoin, but it's not part of their treasury. But US has some Bitcoin that they seized from Silk Road.
Did you speak
Yeah.
about Argentina or El Salvador itself?
El Salvador, yeah.
Right, right.
Argentina does not have Bitcoin in their balance sheet, do they?
I'm not sure.
But
I don't.
their president just met Naya Bukele, right? So
Yeah.
they might have soon.
Yes.
Is there any new? Do we have any news about that the government of India having seized any Bitcoin and do they actually custody it or
I, I'm
I
not
think they
sure
might
about.
have something like that.
I'm not sure if it's successful, but they I think they have custody of that BitConnect ka Bitcoin. Sorry, not the Bitcoin exactly. I think they have seized some hardware from them and something like that. I'm not very sure about this. BitConnect, you remember, right?
So, as much as
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's all there in the newspaper. Like there's this guy Krishna, who was the hacker. He had like hacked a couple of exchanges, and he had like to some estimates like he had 10,000 or so bitcoins. He and his group, and he got jailed. And there was a scam that happened.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know. It was all over the newspaper in
yeah,
Karnataka. But
Karnataka Bitcoin scam.
yeah,
Yeah, but he just got
the
politician
entire
away
thing was
his bitcoin
bogus, it
in
seems.
lieu of like yeah, keeping him safe in the jail.
I don't know what do they do with whatever they have seized.
They would
Wait,
distribute among
imagine
themselves.
like in every other
Yeah,
country,
they
people are
distribute among themselves. I think so.
yeah. I'm like
It can
imagine in
easily
all the
be
countries, people
off the record.
yeah, you're saying something.
Yeah, it can easily made it can easily be made off the record. Like they can distribute it.
Yeah,
Nobody
distribution,
knows
that
what
is.
it is.
But how will they even distribute it? They will not be able to even redeem the private keys, right?
Uh,
They will
no,
need someone to redeem it, and whoever that someone is, he will take all of it.
yeah, I think if they have seized it as a proceed of something, then I think they might have the keys also. Otherwise, seizing doesn't mean anything.
I think Mango asked a very interesting question once that if El Salvador now owns the Bitcoin, so how will it be passed down to the next democratic leader? Do you imagine that
Hmm.
Bukele will send to his
That's not
address?
gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. Like not only Bitcoin attracts monarchs, monarchs and dictators are also attracted to Bitcoins. Because
Right,
once you have it, you have like unlimited power in the country in a way.
right. Agreed, agreed. But yeah, this is still a debate. I think I want to be optimistic that India either leads to monarchy and we see Modi ji become a Bitcoiner. But it's an entirely different thing that don't want to go into. One point that I just wanted to bring up is that Indore had the highest number of Nota votes in history of
Yeah,
yeah. So I'm proud of my city. थोड़ा बहुत.
almost 17.8% something, right?
Yeah, 90,000 I think. 90,000, 9 lakh, I'm not sure. I'll confirm it later. Now, let's actually complete this article and then we can end the session and continue discussion if you want to. So, we are here. How does this relate to Bitcoin and energy consumption? Being an energy rich country, oil was and is Venezuela's primary export, or rather, the good it needs to produce in order to trade. Despite being one of the most energy rich countries in the world, Venezuela's oil production is plummeting. Venezuela crude oil production falls to lowest level since January 2003. So yeah, I think recently Lebanon is the other example of a hyperinflated country a country that has gone through hyperinflation. I think it was less than 2 or 3 years ago. There's a good resource, a YouTube video on it. Venezuela can no longer import the technology or coordinate the resources it needs to extract its primary trading currency, oil. This has caused significant deterioration in its local economy, impairing its ability to produce the electricity needed to power its own energy grids, causing extended blackouts and preventing the delivery of basic services such as power, clean water, or healthcare. What is occurring in Venezuela is devastating, and it is a function of the economic deterioration caused by hyperinflation Monetary debasement distorts the price mechanism of a currency, which then creates economic imbalances. As economic coordination deteriorates, complex supply chains become disrupted, resulting in a decline in the supply of real goods, example, food on shelves, oil production, etc., and an imbalance between supply and demand. As more money is created, real goods become relatively scarce compared to the supply of money, which causes the very function of money to break down. Individuals have a disincentive to hold currency as real goods become more and more scarce, instead, choosing to sell currency as quickly possible, creating a run on basic necessities and causing the currency to hyperinflate. Economic deterioration by monetary manipulation 101. I think this paragraph is very powerful because in his all hyperinflation histories of humanity, nobody had the option of chasing a real good which is actually scarce, which is verifiably scarce. So people had to run after necessities and just survival because that's the only thing that they can actually store value in because there's no other thing that they can trade. I know gold has historically been the monetary standard that we have led to, but it again begins the cycle. It does not really break anything or does not solve any problem. But yeah, so the current hyperinflation or the next hyperinflation of the US dollar, which might take a century, I'm not sure. Yeah, just a casual opinion. It might happen in the next 10 years. But yeah, we finally have an option to run towards a verifiably fixed supply of money. The developed world application. So we are at 9. I'll just read for a while. I don't want to just read. I want you guys to give your opinions. So we'll read till this section until economic stability versus energy consumption. The developed world application. Now, many sitting comfortably in the developed world will look at Venezuela and think it could never happen here, but that ignores all first principles. Whether it is well understood or not, the market structure of the Venezuela bolivar or the Argentine peso is identical to that of the dollar, the euro, or the yen. The Fed, the European Central Bank, or the Bank of Japan may be better at managing stability for now, but it does not change the fact that the underpinnings of all fiat currency systems are the same. This is the this is the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. To highlight the US as an example, the Federal Reserve expanded monetary base from 180 billion in 1984 to a peak of 4.2 trillion following QE3, an increase of 23x. Because of the nature of the Fed's credit-based economy, the economic distortion of this debasement occurred gradually until the financial crisis, which occurred suddenly. And as a function of quantitative easing, we presently sit further out on the same ledge. If you believe the developed world is not in a precarious position or not subject to similar monetary foundation as Venezuela, I would respectfully point to patients zero. The Fed, the ECB, and the Bank of Japan. Often faith placed in this institution is blind to both first principles and common sense, but consider the quote below from a resident Fed economist during the aftermath of the financial crisis. And as the Fed was in the middle innings of creating 3.6 trillion new dollars as part of quantitative easing. Also, I want to just emphasize that I think the gaps in our understanding of the interactions between the financial sector and the real sector are profound. This is David Wilcox, Fed economist from August 2011. An honest review of history demonstrates the ill temperament of those put in charge of managing our economies from central command, while admitting profound gaps in their ability to understand the implications of actions taken on the real economy. The response was to continue down the same path, but in a bigger way, while expecting a different result, the definition of insanity. Now, as we face the consequences of the response to the crisis, we have a choice between two great contrasts: a centrally planned form of currency that is designed to lose its value, or a decentralized currency with a fixed supply. The latter comes with cost in form of energy consumption, but the positive externality will be long-term economic stability. Yep. You can close off now and open for discussions. We'll continue. Let me let me know if you guys want me to continue. We can finish this article off. One or two
Guys,
opinions. Yeah. What did you say, Zebu? Did someone say something?
I'm of the opinion that we can continue.
Yeah, I think we can finish it off in the next 5 minutes. Economic stability via energy consumption. Future economic stability is fundamental why there can be no more important source of demand for the consumption of energy than the security of Bitcoin's monetary system, especially when the alternatives, fiat and gold, are structurally flawed. If we wait to see the signs of hyperinflation, we're already lost. But Venezuela is not just an example of what transpires as a result of hyperinflation, it is a living example of the importance of energy production to the functioning of society. Some energy input is required for everything that we consume in our daily lives. The coordination of those energy inputs is dependent on the reliability and stability of the money we use. Ignore your morning coffee for a minute and think basics: clean water, sanitation, food, medicine, basic healthcare, etc. The coordination of those resources to deliver these basic services is dependent on a functioning monetary system. When a monetary system breaks down, social coordination and even the social fabric begins to go with it. If the basis of all trade is energy, and if we need money to coordinate trade, the highest and best use of that energy should first be to protect the monetary system. Put your proverbial oxygen mask on first and then shift to dependence. Secure the foundation of trade and then focus on all of the derivatives. I think this is a very powerful passage. I'll read it again. I'll take the liberty of reading it again. Ignore your morning coffee for a minute and think basics: clean water, sanitation, food, medicine, basic healthcare, etc. The coordination of resources to deliver these basic services is dependent on a functioning monetary system. When a monetary system breaks down, social coordination and even the social fabric begins to go with it. If the basis of all trade is energy, and if we need money to coordinate trade, the highest and best use of that energy should first be to protect the monetary system. Put your proverbial oxygen mask on first and then shift to dependence, secure the foundation of trade, and then focus on all of the derivatives. Any and all concerns are about the amount of energy Bitcoin consumes or will consume is a red herring. It is not what we should sacrifice electricity that could otherwise power home. Instead, it's that we will never have the electricity to power those homes if we do not have a reliable monetary system to coordinate economic activity and marshal resources. In practice, Bitcoin will not practically compete for the same energy resources that fuel the basic productive and consumptive functions of our economy, not zero sum. Instead, Bitcoin's function as a currency system will ensure that those very energy needs can continue to be fulfilled. I'm not sure if I followed this last sentence. In practice, Bitcoin will not practically compete for the same energy resources that fuel the basic productive and consumptive functions of our economy, not zero sum. Instead, Bitcoin's function as a currency system will ensure that those very energy needs can continue to be fulfilled. So yeah, this is a very simple but misunderstood statement by people outside of Bitcoin that Bitcoin is not competing for energy to power your homes or for your food or to create a good life. It's competing for the energy to be able to give those basic necessities of your life possible. So it's because of a sound money system that we can actually expect to have those services itself, which are currently consuming majority of our energy. What would be bad for society is if more countries deteriorated into the economic and humanitarian disaster that is Venezuela, where basic health and human services cannot be reliably provided. And this is not to present a draconian vision or a dystopian future. Instead, it is to articulate the importance and interconnectedness of both the money function and the energy function in complex, highly specialized economies. If it prevents one instance of hyperinflation such as Venezuelan from happening, Bitcoin's energy consumption would be the best bargain humanity ever got. This is Safety Namos from the Bitcoin Standard Research Bulletin. Bitcoin presents a backup switch to the current architecture of the global financial system and is soon to be its primary engine. Setting aside the systemic risks that currently plague our financial system, Bitcoin is a fundamentally more sound monetary system from the ground up, and it is one secured by the production and consumption of energy. You do not have to believe that the dollar's fate will be that of the Venezuelan bolivar to recognize the importance and interplay between the stability of a monetary function and the production of energy resources that provide basic economic necessities. And the risk inherent in even the possibility of hyperinflation is so negatively asymmetric that the price of Bitcoin energy consumption is of small relative cost. I'll just actually first read the article. Bitcoin will consume any and all energy resources necessary to secure its monetary network, which is inherently driven by the base demand to hold it as currency. The more people that value the long term stability it provides, the more energy it will consume. In the end, this consumption will ensure all other derivatives of energy consumption will continue to be fulfilled, which is why there is no more important long term use of energy than securing the Bitcoin network. Put a price on economic stability and the economic freedom a stable monetary system provides. That is the true justification for the amount of energy Bitcoin should and will consume. Everything else is a distraction. Yep. Yep. So yeah, this is a pretty. I think this should be. A necessary read for any individual who's concerned about his life and people around him. Close of this session. One thing I want to highlight is I was recently watching a talk by Andres Antonopoulos on I can't remember the title of the article. I think it was Bitcoin is punk rock. I think it's a very famous talk. If someone has not watched already, so the one question that he was asked to him towards end of that talk is that Greece had gone through a currency crisis or financial crisis in 2013 when this talk was given, and they were asking that. Since you believe in the architectural stability of Bitcoin, then do you see Bitcoin being adopted in Greece, and how do you imagine the future of Greece on top of Bitcoin? So he was saying that I do not. I currently Bitcoin is not prepared for Greece, and Greece is not prepared for Bitcoin because the number one function that money serves is liquidity. So when you have liquidity, you do not need Bitcoin, and when you have Bitcoin, you do not have liquidity. So this is not the time for Greece to adopt Bitcoin or Bitcoin to have to have a stable currency and monetary system of a country as hugely complex as Greece. But he says that's where the world is heading, and that's the vision of people. So currently, it's only for people who are able to bear the cost of liquidity. But yeah, that's the ultimate reality that when it comes to breakdown of currency, you are forced to chase basic necessities, and Bitcoin cannot help solve that problem, at least not currently. But yeah, that's the foundation that Bitcoin is building.
So I have a question. It's a very off-topic question. Recently, I think Saurabh mentioned, right, that his cook did not vote for Modi, right? So Rahul Gandhi, in his Congress manifesto, they mentioned that they will give 1 lakh rupees to each and every lady who is below the poverty line, right? So my question is, how exactly are they planning to fund this? Because it's obviously a very big amount. If they paid from their out of their own pocket, so either we the taxpayers are going to pay in form of some increased taxes in one sector or the other, or the second option is that they have to print more money for this. But in either way, isn't it a loss-loss situation for like those people who are above the poverty line, or giving this 1 lakh to these people, will it cause inflation in our country if they choose the option 2, which is they print more money?
So in my opinion, poor people really are having a difficult time because their revenues or their income has
Yeah,
not risen.
yeah,
Money is very
definitely.
steady, right? So whatever wages you have, it tends to remain that number, unless
Hmm.
someone who's working in software, someone who's working in financial sector, they tend to have 10% raise or whatever. But for someone who is working as a rural labor, their money actually does not rise. So there's a lot of popular appeal for doles being like these kind of doles, and so I think irrespective of the government, it will happen. Uh, that's a good thing or the bad thing about democracy, that people don't know how to solve it, but you have such a big bracket of people who are just asking for doles to be doled out. And I don't think necessarily it's because they want just freebies, they just want to sit at home. Maybe some of them are like that, but it's
Yeah. I
also,
mean, my question is
yeah.
not in a sense that whether they deserve it or not. It's obviously that they do require some kind of financial aid. My just question is that uh, what's going to be the impact on the economy, right? If the money supply increases, is it going to cause more inflation, or either our taxes will improve? I mean, increase? I just want to analyze the repercussions of it. But there's zero doubt that these people obviously do require some kind of support. It's just that what are the consequences of providing that support?
Yeah, in general, any new government will sort of have like a fixed PT, and they will always plan to shift around the allocations in order to manage these kinds of populist proposals, and it will include many strategies like some portion of it will be pushed to the debt part, some portion of it will be taken out from some other heads of the budget. A mixture of strategies to fund these.
And the only reason this question came to my mind was because when Trump distributed those stimulus checks during COVID in the US, it led to a lot of inflation in the coming years. So I was just thinking whether the same scenario will happen here in India as well if we give this kind of money to such a large segment of population.